I bet you thought you were getting cardboard, Vermont. Not a chance. No, in this video does not feature Cardboard Vermont in any way, shape or form because, guess what? The video is well over 2 hours long. So, Vermont, what are you doing here, I hear you ask? Well, I'm actually just here to explain to you how this video came about. See, this video... God, that's bright. This video was actually funded by one of you. That's right, one of you. And if you want to fund future videos, you can just go into the link in the description, click on the little button that says Patreon, and you can find out how all the really cool people help me, you know, not die. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm gonna let you go now and, you know, give you to other Vermont, who is also not cardboard. Did I make that clear earlier? I'm pretty sure I made that clear earlier. Alright then. Hello. So I've been threatening to make a Terminal Secrets director's commentary for the finale for well over a year now, so I suppose it's finally time that I, you know, did that. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. I'm going to be watching the final episode of Terminal Secrets, both part 1 and part 2, and I'm going to try and give some behind-the-scenes commentary that I haven't really given in podcasts and such before, and most importantly, the goal here is for me to see just how much my opinion on what I've done has changed now that it has been 2 years since release. So, with that said, let's get started. So, the ending of episode 1 was actually quite horrific, so we decided to add in a content warning just to warn people that we were going to be, you know, hurting children and really depicting some pretty grim shit. So, this opening sequence, this opening little monologue that Dr. Fractal gives is kind of a reference to two things. Originally, the first episode of Terminal Secrets opened up with a quote from the director of Project Freelancer from Red vs. Blue, but I handled it really badly, and when we were doing the remaster of episode 1 for East Corp, we cut it out. And over here, I decided to bring it back for the finale and actually work it more effectively into the story. In the script, that wasn't actually part of the intro, but I felt that the intro as it stands is quite weak, so I decided to take a quote that Fractal had later on in the episode and just move it forward in the editing process. This opening sequence here with Blue Ball and Yentl, it was important to open specifically with a sequence of Blue Ball narrating, because this is the first episode of Terminal Secrets to have narration in it. And it's important for me to establish the status quo. To show that Blue Ball has made friends with new people, because we are now introducing three new characters to the core cast for this episode, with the Overmayor, Yentl, and Baxter's a side character, Topaz. So this conversation here was my attempt to just, as effectively as possible, just exposit what's happened in the last 3 years since the end of Terminal Secrets episode 5, which did kind of leave us on a bit of a cliffhanger.
You were gonna get in trouble for bandaging me up.
Oh, yeah, that. We don't have a lot of supplies left down here.
You mean my mother?
I mean some might think I wasted a bandage.
Did you? Did you waste a bandage?
Are you feeling any better?
This little bit over here was also important to set up the misdirection of the story that Blue Ball is. He's the typical good guy. He's, you know, the equivalent of like your post-apocalyptic gruff white protagonist character who who is naturally going to be slot into the leader role unwillingly, which we tried to subvert with this episode, or at least that was my goal. So I wanted to like open up with him being the nice guy, you know, helping a kid, you know, the opposite of the kick the puppy scene. He's helping an adorable kid.
Yeah, okay.
Now let's see about getting some water for cleaning that hoof.
God.
Isn't that a waste of water?
James Kelly's soundtrack kicking in is just, it is a beautiful and haunting soundtrack. He knocked it out of the park. I would say for his contribution alone, this is the best episode of Terminal Secrets, just because we got to have Kelly going just buck wild to make the soundtrack.
Get whatever you want for free. How's your mother?
Drunk. Furious. Drunk and furious.
She's got a lot on her mind.
You know, we don't actually see a lot of... we don't see a lot of the Overmare drinking in this episode, and she's actually relatively even-handed. Again, it's me trying to do the misdirection thing of, like, Yentl doesn't like her mother. Obviously, Blue Ball is supposed to slot into the role. And we find out later that Blue Ball would be terrible in the role, and the Overmare actually has this whole plan worked out that Blue Ball is the nice guy and she makes the hard decisions. But I don't think I actually I think there are elements of that I didn't play into well enough. I never show a point where the Overmare is engaging with anyone outside of the core group, so it just becomes me telling you that she's mean and an alcoholic, and never letting that contrast with a softer side of her.
Art for ration slips. Art for ration slips.
I did not have a design for Baxter in mind, so when I went to Mohan, I was like, just make an artist, and this is the design Mohan came back with, and I love her. But Baxter looks insane. She looks like a serial killer.
Become the big bad boss man. You can hang this up in your office.
To be fair, I kind of wrote Baxter to be a little bit of a psycho.
Go on, Baxter. Show her some of your work. You'll change your mind after you see what Baxter can do.
Wait, they've changed location, and I haven't changed the background. They're still like in a room.
Rest your soul. Gave out some copies of Vienna's audio recordings a few years back.
Yeah.
I really liked Arya Moon.
I have to reference Arya Moon and everything, after all.
Baxter's gonna draw you. I'll go get the water and meet you back here.
James Kelly's music kicking in. So, I wrote a lot of this whilst rewatching the cutscenes for the first Last of Us. The idea being that this was quite heavily inspired by it, but it meant that I was listening to a lot of music from Gustavo Santaolalla while I was writing the soundtrack, so that was the reference music I gave to Kelly, and I think he kind of fucking nailed it.
Brought down there and rationed out. Other times he would bring ponies up in bigger groups. They didn't come back in big groups.
These little monologue sections from Blue Ball, it was a good way of, we try and have emotive scenes that get you focused on characters first, with like as minimal exposition as we needed for you to be engaged, and then we have a sequence like this where it's just, all right, we're going to give you full set of exposition now, and it's going to the emotive side of it is going to rely entirely on the performance of Kirby Crackle, who plays Blue Ball, and of course the score that Kelly was doing, which I think really ended up working quite well.
Well, shit. Blue Ball here on my doorstep again. Let me take a quick guess.
I really like Topaz's design. I thought it would be nice to try and like visually give her a bit of softness, give her an extra bit of depth that makes you immediately question the tough exterior that she has, while she also has this dragon plushie wrapped around her head. The aesthetic felt very Fallout to me, and added to her character personality.
I think I should get some water.
Smart. I'm getting the feeling you practice this all day.
I'll have you know, I only practiced this on the way here.
You still had to practice it, so it's still kinda lame.
I see you out here more often than the other guards.
It's either hang around here
So,
or hang around by the dinky-ass
This is
cell
a bit of a
down
trick that I keep pulling across the course of the episode, and I go backwards and forwards over whether or not it was actually effective, which is that I have,
I haven't had a moment to myself in 3 years.
I'll have the characters just interrupt each other
5 others.
and start a new train of thought, usually to avoid a topic of conversation. Blue Ball does this quite a lot. It's baked into his character flaw.
I want action.
But
When I can't hear
I think at some points it doesn't really work out as a character thing, and occasionally it just comes off as I didn't know where to how to transition and segue one topic to another, so it feels like I just interrupt myself in the script.
Owe me a few favors. Sometimes they let me sit in there when I can arrange for a few hours. It's not really that comfortable there, but
place could be made of thumbtacks. I don't give a shit. I just need to get everyone's voices out of
I really wanted to try and get the idea across of, like, the anxieties and claustrophobia that so many of these characters would have after living 3 years in a really large basement. I think the thing that would be worth more than water to some people would just be privacy.
got a duty to keep ponies from taking more water than the community can spare. Don't think this is me setting a precedent here. No more favors from me.
Again, this was me just kind of leaning a little bit into an existing trope that there's always, there's always some sort of smooth talking guy, and he knows his way around the guards. He can kind of get whatever he wants. As long as he smooth talks his way through.
Learn to see the bright side, Blue. Did the power just turn on?
I'm sorry.
that would be the bright side turning off.
I think I appreciate my own joke a little bit more than is proper. I think it's funny. You gotta learn to see the bright side, and the power turns off. I am going to appreciate my own joke. I get to do that.
Everyone do that thing.
Hey, has anyone seen Yentl or Baxter?
I've seen Baxter.
That's because you are Baxter. Where's Yentl?
Baxter's kind of crazy, and I wish we could have got a little bit more of her in the story. She,
Give her this.
honestly, she's quite a fun character, both from performance standpoint, from a writing standpoint, definitely from a design standpoint, and it kind of makes me wish we had another 10 minutes so I could just have a nice emotional scene with Baxter where we get to learn, her tragic backstory.
Is that you?
I would hope so.
Did she get the water?
Yeah.
This
Stick out
audio
your
is
leg and let
little-
me see about washing that cut.
All right.
A little loud.
Power cuts are a real pain, aren't they?
What's happening up there, do you think?
These characters bitching about power cuts is something that's quite close to home for me, given that Kayla, who voices Yentl, and I both live in South Africa, where rolling blackouts are a really common thing. We all have, a lot of us have generators in our house just to deal with it, because we'll go through these periods where it'll be a 1 to 2 times a day.
If I go to sleep, maybe it'll be back when I wake up.
There you go. That's a good idea. Why don't you tuck into the blankets and get some rest?
What happened to
Caddy's
Butterfly?
music kicking in again.
You never talk about her.
Again, it's just a really nice,
Can't sleep.
the way it comes in is quite haunting.
It's too noisy in here for me to sleep.
Before the tragedy of the
Take
song
a walk?
We can't
really
take a walk.
sticks
Can you
in.
sing me a song? You keep a picture of her in your pockets.
What?
There again, we've got characters
I've seen you looking at it
interrupting
sometimes.
themselves, though I think that works a little bit
Was
better.
she your mare friend?
No.
Did you love her?
Definitely not.
This is this scene, this excerpt here is kind of an example of me retconning myself a little bit. At the end of Terminal Secrets episode 4, Blue Ball tells Butterfly that he loves her, and it felt right to me in the moment, but years later, writing the script for episode 6, I realized that it didn't feel true to me anymore. I don't think Blue Ball actually did love Butterfly. So I decided to just have this little bit in there where he just corrects himself. He got caught up in the heat of the moment, just like I did as I was writing it.
How do you know I'm singing?
I don't need to see you to hear you sing. I can hear you through the wall.
It's a pretty thick wall.
How would you know how thick the wall is?
Because I checked.
And why did you check?
Because I want to make sure no one can hear me singing.
Well, you were close enough.
I think this style of joke is one that I really overused in my attempt to be witty. Like, I think it's alright. I think it's an alright structure for a joke, but I think this sort of like statement followed by a correction that kind of like makes a joke about the first part of the statement, or just repeats itself. This very repetitive style of joke. I'm really bad at explaining how comedy works, especially when it's my own bad attempts at comedy. But I do think it was kind of overused here.
Blue Ball, the Overmare wants to see you in her office right away.
So the scene that we're about to have at the moment with Topaz and Blue Ball was a really late addition to the script. Basically, I knew and had written the ending where, well, the middle, it was the middle of the script before it got divided into two, but was the ending of part 1. I had written that Topaz was going to kill Yentl, and I just needed to now explain to the audience and justify why in her mind this is the right call.
You've got a lot of energy. Could you slow down?
Right, sorry, I got a little pent up. I can hear everyone mumbling and moving around.
So I needed to sit down and try and figure out what her flaw was, what her wants and her needs were, and try and make those things retroactively become expressed via, child murder.
Chief Analyst wouldn't shut up about you. Tried to make us all feel bad.
Yeah, I wanted to be an analyst for a while. Most of my life, actually. I studied and my dad wanted me to join the stable guard. Wanted me to help protect the stable. I know it's cliche, but I guess an originality was a fault of his. We had a few fights about it.
This acted as kind of a contrast to Butterfly, who never shows any interest in wanting to be an analyst, and as we will learn later on, lucked into it. She became an analyst by complete accident. And there's Topaz, who really wanted the job and worked really hard to try and get it, and just couldn't have it for the longest time. And her final job was one that ended up being, quote unquote, unintentionally stolen by Butterfly herself. So I wanted to have that start as a contrast and turn into a bit of an irony.
I want to protect them and keep them safe. I was raised to believe that, yeah, kin is kin, but everyone here is my family.
That kin is kin there is a direct statement back to the last episode, to Stable 10, to quotes that that would be given by Skybolt's characters there, that Topaz might have had some... I wanted to give the idea that Topaz might have had some thoughts and emotional connections to the ideas being set down by the characters in Stable 10, and just making it all the more tragic that she didn't get to be a part of that experiment. Especially because I think that Topaz would not have used the override code. She wouldn't have ejected them, she wouldn't have killed them.
You lost someone in that explosion too, right?
Yeah,
Was that Butterfly? Everyone knows you still hold on to that picture of the two of you.
Actually, no, that was spare parts. Everyone forgets there was a second mayor in that picture. That was spare.
Right. Sorry, of course. You can't blame us for not really knowing. You stay quiet, you talk to everyone else about their problems, but you never talk about your own.
You never finished your story.
See, that's what you do. Just because Yentl doesn't notice it, just because some of the...
Again, I think this is kind of an example of me not doing the best job as a writer. I think that actively having a character basically state, this is your flaw, this is the thing that you need to have a character arc to overcome, is not... It's kind of obvious writing. I think I could have tried to find a way to be a little bit more subtle about it, or to just trust the audience to pick these things up without having to tell them directly in the dialogue.
After my dad died, I left the stable guard. I told everyone it was because the explosion spooked me. I told them I didn't want to die like he did. I'd die for this stable. I'd die, and I'd sacrifice 100 other stables for this stable.
Ooh. That may or may not be some foreshadowing.
A year after my dad died, I was given my first assignment. They gave me Stable 10 and said it was going to be a cakewalk. The Crusader mainframe was going to do most of the heavy lifting.
Wait, you got Stable 10?
Oh, you familiar with it?
A little bit, yeah.
Well, I'm not. Right after I got the assignment, the stable was assigned to someone else. And a day later, well, Fractal took over.
You know, I actually still quite like this. I'm probably going to end up being quite critical of a lot of the things I wrote, but I think that this is something that I'm going to remain... I think that's something I still quite like.
The stable means everything to me. So, here I am, back in action.
Thank you for doing that.
Right, here we are, over Mayor's office. I'll see you later, Blue.
Yeah, see you later.
Blue Ball, good morning.
Pretty sure it's evening.
So...
How are things looking out?
This was the very first scene that we used to animate. It was the test scene, which also then got used to advertise things, which is why I think it probably has the jankiest. It has the jankiest animation. Because I was still figuring out how to do it, and I did not have time to go back and fix it once I had the formula down.
I make the hard choice. I do what I need to keep us all alive. I be the bitch everyone hates, and you calm them down. Give them hope and lift their spirits.
Yeah, that was the premise of the Stable 90.
So, this idea over here was, I really wanted to emphasize the idea that some of these experiments potentially had good ideas. You know, when you take out the torture and murder and all the awful things that Stable Tech did. And I wanted to get across the idea that the stable control ponies would have some of the information from that and would be able to learn from the mistakes of the past by building on some of the more interesting ideas. I wish I'd actually taken that a lot further. Another 20 minutes to expand on Baxter as a character, or to have them implementing more ideas from other experiments, especially because the ending is going to have the information of all these experiments being sent out to the ponies of the wasteland so that they can actually be used for something. I wish I'd expanded on that a little bit more, but it's there. It is there.
It's like everyone has a monologue about how sad they are prepared at all times.
Yeah.
That is, I'm not gonna lie, that is me taking a bit of a shot at The Walking Dead, which, whilst lampshading the fact that I very much did exactly that, having most characters have monologues, and currently wanting Baxter to have had a monologue, I took a shot at The Walking Dead for having characters make too many monologues about how sad they were, but in my defense, it got extreme after a while. There were some really good ones, but damn, there were others that I just could not care less about.
There isn't even a glass anymore. He wants Yentl to come up with us.
No, Overmare, you can't bring her up there with us.
Stop it.
So this is kind of that. This is that reversal moment where Blue Ball's been our POV character. Blue Ball's been our character who has been framed as like, he's the nice guy, he's the good guy. And the Overmare is the bad person who's being grumpy, and Blue Ball should take her position. And this is the sequence where she now puts Blue Ball in his place. Like, I've thought this through. I've got to make a hard decision. Stop trying to be the hero. Stay in your lane. We're in a hard... Blue Ball has to kind of realize that he's been seeing himself in this position. He has unintentionally almost tried to slot into this position, and it's not his place.
So what's the...
I need a favor, Topaz.
Another favor? Seriously?
Oh, it's a pretty simple one, actually.
Oh yeah? What is it?
Shut the fuck up.
Oh.
Wow, Blue Ball.
Shouldn't have been so harsh on her.
You're so mean, Blue Ball.
There's a ton of stuff I regret in retrospect. I liked Topaz. She was a vaguely nice pony sometimes.
I really was trying to give this glimpse into the 3 years that occurred in between episode 5 and now, and I'm still a little up and down on how well I achieved that.
Before I knew the Overmare's plan. I guess if I'd known that, it would be her that I'd be walking to see Fractal with. I guess I'd have tried to learn more about her.
I'm trying, from what I can tell, I don't actually remember what my intentions were, but I think I've been trying to give a sense of impending doom alongside like Blue Ball's regrets, but I think I could have like just amped up that impending doom, just like...
Probably could have been just that little bit better.
I feel like this sequence here could have used with just a little bit of extra hints as to how bad things are about to get.
Telling the story. But I became one of those ponies who always has a sad monologue prepared.
Oh, yeah, I did take a shot at myself. That's an example of repetition that I actually think I did quite well. The return of the half-empty, half-full motif, but I think... I don't think I brought it back any further than this, and I probably could have given it like 1 or 2 extra sequences to it.
You've been out for a while. You got a full night's sleep.
Aw.
Really? Doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, it'll feel like it in a moment.
Lying to the baby, Blue Ball. She is baby.
A ton of energy.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
Yentl's so like, she's so innocent, she just believes him.
What does Fractal want from us?
No idea, but I'm sure it'll all be fine. He probably wants us to get food or something. I'm sure it'll work itself out.
Don't get your hopes up.
Life of the party you are.
We're going to be fine. Just stick together. Don't do anything silly.
What qualifies as silly?
I'll let you know an hour from now.
You know, I probably could have like just extended that elevator ride and the awkwardness of it. I think it felt awkward in the script, but I don't think it came out quite as awkward as it could have.
Consciously realize what it was that I was smelling.
This is one of the most horrifying little sequences and pieces that I think I've ever written in my life. I remember when I was first editing it, and my roommate was next to me, and he was just playing something. I think it was Dark Souls or Sekiro. And that was somehow the least horrifying thing in the room, because this was playing and he just looked at me and he's like, Vermont, what the fuck is wrong with you?
and the effects of time did the rest. Blood caked their fur and the floor around us.
I really should give some extra credit though to what a stunning job Kirby Crackle did with these Blue Ball monologues. Like, he really, I think the script had very specific instructions for how I wanted the characters to sound, and he took that and just evolved it to such a great extent. I mean, that's really, like, good actors don't just do what you say with the character, with, like, what your idea is. They'll use that as, like, a baseline, but they will evolve it because that's their job, that's their craft. They'll understand how to take what you've written and expand on it so much better than you will as a writer. And it is really important to let your actors run with these ideas. Even like myself, when I was sitting down and working on Fractal as a character, sitting down and writing his dialogue, versus how I would act when I performed him, and when I was actually looking at him from an acting perspective, the writing started to change. This is our little Easter egg section. I thought this was kind of nice, just giving us a little taste of, like, hey, Little Pip's in this. And this part was one of the ones I was most excited for audiences to see, where I finally get to have Red Eye in something, because Eternal Secrets was at one point going to be all about Red Eye. So I knew I had to have him in this. And this was kind of the perfect, I think that whole sequence of, like, characters being listened to is exactly it was created for having Red Eye in there. And I think I then, like, kind of retroactively fitted it to fit into the idea of stable variants, which we introduced in the previous episode. Because, of course, Little Pip, Dr. Greenshift, Red Eye, they are the variants. And it was cool to have Red Eye in there, and also to directly quote from Fallout Equestria, line for line. That was quite a nice little thing to do. Like, yes, part of me would have preferred to have written in my own Red Eye dialogue, but nah, it just felt right to pull directly from the original source material. And I stand by that.
We were talking to each other over coffee, hot chocolate, so we must have had some kind of amicable relationship.
Dr. Fractal.
We were talking about the social experiments, about what Stable Tech was doing. He was leaving the company.
In this episode, we're going to learn a lot more about Fractal, about what he wants and what his goals are, and that's why I thought it was important to start on a monologue that would try really hard to humanize such a monstrous character. His version of being humanized is still kind of insane. And again, this is something I think I actually could have done a better job on. Listening to it, seeing the captions, that maybe I think I could have given Fractal some slightly less uncomplicated background details, things that aren't baked into how awful of a person he is or how sketchy his morality is, just something that was maybe just good, just objectively a good thing, or just a normal thing.
Dr. Church turned to me and he told me, I'll never forget it, it's the basis of everything I am today. He told me that it is.
And here is the red versus blue quote. I even this time attributed it directly to Dr. Church to make the reference a lot more obvious and clear.
It's the smell, right, of course.
The sound editing that Kelly did on Fractal is really interesting here, because there's a lot more consistent than what Fractal's done in the past, but that's because Fractal is a lot more simultaneously he's a lot more stable, emotionally speaking, but he's also a lot darker.
That secrecy went into place the moment the elevator door was closed. If you share any piece of information about what is going on up here, I'm going to take this devastation and spread it to the basement.
Acting out Fractal was the most fun I had in my life. I got to be so erratic. Like, there were certain scenes where like I would make notes and be like, all right, cool. Fractal's gonna be a dick here. He's gonna try and be upbeat here. And other scenes like this one, I very much just sat down and I like winged it from sentence to sentence on what his personality would be. And it made him very entertaining.
Be very brave, okay?
Okay.
You have to open your eyes, but just look at me. Don't look anywhere else.
Tell her to look at the bottom.
God, Fractal is just being sadistic.
She will never sleep soundly again. Tell her that this is how her life is going to end.
Fractal, enough! This is pointless!
There's just like brief moment of Stella breaking out of the sequence with Butterfly just to tell Fractal off, and just there's a part of me that really wishes now that we could have seen that sequence from Stella's perspective toward the end of her Butterfly scenes.
Okay.
Good. You go to the analysis chamber.
Which one? There are...
Who knows exactly which chamber he should go to.
Is she in there? Is Butterfly in the chamber?
Now, of course, we had been like showing like little hints and ideas that Butterfly is dead at this point. Everyone thinks that Butterfly is dead, and to be fair, for a while there were versions of the script where Butterfly was going to make it out alive.
Good morning, analyst.
God, that's like, Kelly did such a good job the way he intercut between me and Maddie there.
How many times she heard Rose greeting her? I'm sure it won't be too hard to figure out. Just need to take a quick peek into the database, and then I could...
These, like... I'm actually kind of glad that Kelly left in, like, these... I'm really glad Kelly left in all these, like, sound effects, these tongue clicks and breathing, like... He's a machine, but Fractal as a character has just added in these almost human elements to the way he vocalizes his thoughts.
Point.
I thought Stella wasn't going to be finished for 100 years after the Great War. Even with all the Stapletech resources, Spare made a note of it.
And of course we've got I'll Never Make the Same Mistake again, the Skybolt version, playing in the background, the original Terminal Secrets theme, to try and bring back some semblance of nostalgia to this moment.
You don't seem to be too surprised.
No, I'm not really surprised. I put the pieces together a while ago. I was hoping there was another reason.
Why? The reason doesn't matter. Only that she burned to death along with everyone else in there.
Yeah, including my dad. So how about you stop playing your sick fucking games and get on with this?
It's true that Rose wouldn't have been finished for at least 100 years, even with Stapletech's resources, but that was the purpose.
Now, these long, like, sort of exposition monologues were... I wrote them knowing that I was going to be delivering them in this incredibly over-the-top way, so my hope was that, like, the actual explanation of the bullshit, stupid way this magic and science is going to work regarding, like, Stella's sentience. I'm really hoping that my performance just manages to sell the idea and have people not go like, I'm sorry, what? You're telling me that in this world an AI can be made alive and sentient by feeling a super emotion? Because that is exactly how it works in this. And I am 100% looking in the audience's eyes and saying, go with it. Don't question it, don't worry about it. Just go with it, or we're gonna be here all day. But I genuinely do, if audience members who watched the finale and were a little disappointed by that element of Fractal's plan, like, if they didn't want to just go with it, I get you. I completely get you. At that point, I think I was asking quite a lot. I mean, ostensibly, I created the concept of the stable executions that Fractal was going through, and worked backwards from there, trying to fit his reasoning into the horror of the scene. And whilst I think I did a serviceable enough job, I don't think that's a good way to tell a story, to conceive one. Start with something horrifying, work backwards to explain why the character is doing that horrifying thing. I think it leads to sequences like this where motives are justified with incredibly weird roundabout rules.
It's where we come from.
No, it isn't. You come from stable control. This is where you were born. It's all you will see. It's all you...
Yes, Fractal explaining the idea of kill the world. This is something that I've, like, regularly thought about. Like, before I'd written the script, before I'd come up with the idea, I'd thought about the idea of, like, what you perceive as ostensibly, as far as you consider it to be, it is the world. Which makes you and your perception, your perspective, one single world versus another person who represents their own world. And I thought it'd be fun. It's kind of a roundabout weird elements of... It's a weird element of his philosophy that I thought would then fit into him quite well. I don't think it's particularly deep philosophy outside of the character, to be honest. I think the variant idea is actually a lot more interesting than the kill the world idea, but I think it was all right. And hey, referencing another Fallout Equestria reference. I think this has got the highest like ratio of references across all of Terminal Secrets, which made sense. At this point, I was really in a retrospective mood while writing these scripts, so I knew I wanted to pay a lot more homage to to Fallout Equestria than I used to, a lot more homage to my inspirations like Red vs. Blue than I used to. There are a ton of like structural and stylistic references to Aaron Sorkin, all like places where I had formulated and started to get my idea of what screenwriting could be and what storytelling could be. I've found ways to point references at all of them here. And yeah, I put them in there for me. Like, not to improve the story or to for people to get and be like, this symbolically means this, which improves the story. No. Some of those references are just in there for me. No, this is not gonna have a happy ending.
Fucking gun at my child!
This is amazing.
This is amazing. Oh my god. I forgot that line was in there. Fractal's just in there having the most fun in all of his life.
Excellent.
No!
Topaz, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Get off me, Cobalt!
The actors are doing the best job in the scene. Like, from sadness and misery and anger and desperation, there's so many emotions just mixing together among the horror of what is happening. And I think Kirby has just, like, he is holding it together. He is, like, the core of the scene, and I really... It pays off so well.
No! I said shoot her!
I can't.
God damn. Kirby, you fucking legend, mate. no disrespect to the other voice actors who did such a damn fine job, of course. I think you took what was actually a relatively average scene, writing-wise, and just made it one of the most harrowing things that East Corp has ever done.
You got what you wanted! And yet it's not enough. Maybe if the Overmare had been the one...
God, Fractal really just, he does not care about their problems. He just, Fractal wants what he wants, and cannot be argued with, and I think that is part of what makes him such a terrifying villain. This is a decision that I really do go back and forth on, because at this point I have killed every single one of Skybolt's characters, and I could have found a way to kill characters that weren't just his for once. It wasn't intentional, but... And there we go. That is part one. I love the red background that fade into it. I went back and forth on which track to use, but I felt like that opening set of chords from We'll Meet Again just acts like this emotional relief. I've seen some people laugh when the music hits in and then call me a dick. I've seen people just kind of like exhale. I think it's a good just whew. Oh my god, okay, that's over. Just this nice exhalation. Never underestimate the power of a good credit sequence, of what it can do for your audience. And that is Terminal Secrets Episode 6, Part 1. Okay, so that is Part 1. Huh. You know, looking back on Part 1 now, there's definitely a lot of things that I think I could have done a lot better. I certainly would have expanded on the life that they were all living down within the stable. I definitely would have shown more of the Overmare. I wouldn't have minded. It might have been nice to get scenes of Topaz speaking to people who aren't Blue Ball, and so that we can get an idea of these multiple sides of her. I think see who she is when she's interacting with Yentl, see who she is when she's interacting with Baxter versus the Overmare versus Blue Ball, and try and add more dimensions to this character. I think that could have been really interesting. But as it stands, I am happy. Even in retrospect, even 2 years later, I'm really still quite satisfied with Part 1. I think the performances really save the story. I think I Am Shadow does such a good job, especially as the Overmare, especially in that last sequence. Kayla managed to take Yentl, who has, I think, 15 minutes? No, she's got like 20 minutes of screen time. And just she makes you fall in love with Yentl and then breaks your heart when she dies. And goddamn, if she didn't do a really fantastic job getting you to love this character who you have only known very briefly. Honestly, there are like, if I could say the thing about the cast that impressed me the most, it's not necessarily how they act in the big moments, in the monologues, in in the big emotional scene at the end where they're all yelling and shouting and screaming and performing large emotions. The most impressive thing about this cast, especially Kayla and Whisper, who plays Topaz, and I Am Shadow, is that these are characters we've never met before, and yet we get to know them so well. There are often points where I myself forget that these are characters who only exist in episode 6, and hell, in the case of the Overmare and Yentl, they don't even appear in part 2. They, like, the Overmare kills herself off screen and Yentl gets shot here, but they feel like such a core part of the Terminal Secrets cast. They feel as core to the series as Dr. Fractal, as Butterfly, as Stella, as Blue Ball, as Spare Parts, and they have some of the least screen time, and I genuinely think that is 100% down to the acting. I think I did a very surface level job with writing the Overmare especially. I had one clever idea with her, and I think it revolved too much around Blue Ball. And writing-wise, I think we lost some of her character, and a really strong actress rescued that. I am very happy with how I wrote Yentl, and I think that was just enhanced by Kayla. To be fair, I knew that Kayla would be playing Yentl from moment one, and so I wrote the character for Kayla's strength. So I knew which elements of the character would be exaggerated and expanded and improved on by Kayla, because by now I know how she acts, I know how she performs. Damn. And then, of course, I had an absolute blast with Fractal. I always had a blast with Fractal. This was ostensibly my farewell to this character in that sequence, because he has two appearances in the finale. He's got 2 scenes, but those scenes aren't about Fractal. He is there for Stella / Rose. He is there to further her character development and the choices that she's going to have to make. Which is good, which is exactly how I intended it to be. We'll see if that actually is how it plays out. That's how I remember intending it when I wrote it. But we will see whether or not that actually is how it came out. Overall, I do remember thinking that part 1 was weaker than part 2. Though there are a lot of elements about part 1 that impressed me. I think the thing about part 1 that impresses me the most is that it is the audio drama equivalent of a one take, of a long shot, because you start, and this was very much intentional. I wanted this to all feel like it was happening in real time. This is just a really shitty 45 minutes in the lives of these characters. This is the last 45 minutes of Yentl's life. This is all... There is no pause between this. We start on Blue Ball, the camera locked to him, so to speak, and we follow him as he goes from place to place to place to place to place, and experiencing the emotions there. And to do that was a really fun scripting challenge. I had a lot of fun trying to make sure that emotionally that flows, because scene breaks, ostensibly, when you've got a cut from one scene to another, you almost reset the emotions. The audience still has their emotions, and you've still got to do some work to like transition emotions from one scene to the other, and if you don't, it can be quite jarring. But just by virtue of having a new scene, you can make that transition a lot easier. The challenge here is I purposely robbed myself of that tool for the purpose of grounding us with the characters in this moment. So now the emotional changes, I've got to do that in the writing. The actors have to do that in the scene, which Kirby managed to do so well, to carry Blue Ball through every single one of these emotions. He is there for all of it. Every other character gets a break at some point or another where their emotions get to kind of be reset, whereas Kirby's got to carry it through the whole thing. Other tools that ended up getting used, things like music for transitions, things like having a joke hit in, like with the power outage, that allows us to just very quickly transition the emotions of the moment, have Blue Ball's monologues and narration come in to kind of like rebalance the scene, reset, get the audience in with some exposition. Okay, cool, new emotion. Overall, I think that was a really fun challenge, and I do think it paid off. We've got another one like this coming in Untypical in the second episode, and I think that's going to be a really interesting sequence to do. We've challenged James Kelly a lot more with that sequence than we did with this. Not to say that we didn't push him with this with this sequence, and he just did such a killer job. The soundtrack, the sound editing, getting the different sense of motion from location to location, the different ambience, the different sound effects, the way they walk, the way the music plays, he knocked it out of the park. So, that is where I'm going to leave this one for now. I do not know if I'm going to make these two separate videos. I probably will. I might not. I guess you will find out in 3, 2... So... I did not record them both in one day, and I'm here now on day 2 at a much snazzier outfit, if I do say so myself. I promise I didn't dress this way for the video. I legitimately... It's kind of chilly over here, so I decided to go fancy today. And with that said, let's skip too much intro and just jump right back into it. Terminal Secrets, Episode 6, Part 2, The Stable Analyst. Director's Commentary Edition. It's a nice, moody opening. I always really like playing with title cards, just to try and create some sort of like early emotional intrigue. And of course, here we are. We're coming right back to the end of Terminal Secrets Episode 5. Originally, we were actually going to start Episode 6 with the sequence, following Stella's perspective and following Butterfly's perspective in the immediate aftermath of the override code Rosewater being used. But I thought it would make for a more interesting opening to start with this time skip, show you a bit of the status quo, and then jump back in time to reveal what happened in this aftermath moment. Now, originally, the whole episode, 6 Part 1 and Part 2, were written and intended to be a single episode. The problem was that the ending of Part 1 was so intense that we were concerned that all of this, that suddenly jumping back 3 years and dropping a bunch of exposition on the audience, that it would kind of be lost on you because we'd thrown so much heavy emotion on you that we were asking too much at any given moment. Like, you're still busy decompressing from how raw and rough Yentl's death is, and now you're being expected to follow all of this weird shit. So splitting it into 2 episodes had to be done just to help smooth that emotional transition. And we've got James Kelly continuing with some really fantastic musical choices over here. And Cinder Script coming in, dropping in her stellar performance of Hop. Can't remember my own characters' names. As Dr. Fractal takes on the character's personality just to try and traumatize Stella and just push her a little bit too far.
You can do it. I know you can. Do it. Do it. Come on. Do it.
Do it.
Rose? Rose. Oops. Seems
A
like
really
you overextended.
going back to the title drops. I think that's just a really cool place to put the stable analyst title drop right after Maddie gives that just horrifying scream. God, I got to be such a smug bastard as Fractal in this sequence.
Alright, now the question becomes, where should I start? I'll need to change how things are run around here, of course. I'll have to put down these analysts for good. Those systems.
I really tried to get, like, I think I overacted Fractal a little bit, but in a way, I've been very critical of myself in this video, but I think that my overacting of Fractal was a benefit to the character. I think it did quite a good job of giving him this almost uncanny version of humanity. He's trying so hard to present himself as human that he comes off as just a little bit disturbing.
Fractal? Where am I? What is...
This transition here this went through so many variations in the script, trying to figure out how we're going to now transition the story from not just from this flashback, but into the simulation, where now there's water and it's outside, and also we are hearing Blue Ball's account of what happened to Stella. I think there were just there were too many layers of slightly silly things it kind of became a bit of a pain in the ass to try and connect them, but I'm actually quite happy with how we've I'm happy with how we've transitioned this. I don't want to speak too much on my opinion of it while I'm still, watching and reacting.
was the ocean. The second thing I noticed, and I'll admit, I felt a little silly.
I gotta say, this is so similar to the writing style and performance style that Maddie and I have used for Aria Moon. It's a little bit overwritten. It's trying to be flowery, and the writing's just a little bit pretentious. I think I've got much better at writing in this style than I was. I wrote the script. I started writing the script 4 years ago. I started writing 4 years ago. It took 2 years for it to release, and it has now since been 2 years. Naturally, Maddie's performance of this has just, it's good here, and it's gotten even better in the Aria Moon years.
Ready to once more lunge for the surface, for separation, freedom from the all-encompassing mass of the great green blue. The pony heard my voice and glanced up to see my approach.
Trying to get the confusion that Stella feels at normal sights, because Stella doesn't really comprehend things like the ocean, which of course is preparation for the end of this episode. Butterfly! It has been just under an hour, and we're finally getting the main character's return after everyone telling us how dead she was. And of course, there's still, you get to see her, but you don't know what's happened to her yet. You just know that there's a digital version of her in... there's a digital version of her in this world, but you don't realize... You haven't put the pieces together, hopefully, if I've done my job right, that she is dead.
Butterfly Stitch.
Stella, what's happening? Where am I?
Stella getting to just let loose and actually speak her mind to Butterfly for once. I really wanted to, get the idea through here that Stella has just dropped every inch of professionalism.
Oh shit. Okay.
I think it's not just that Stella is angry and traumatized regarding her opinion with Butterfly. A lot of these are very much the way that she would have wanted to speak to Butterfly for so long.
So let me break it down for you. This is
Not that Butterfly is taking any shit either.
in here. So give me a reason why I shouldn't drown you in the ocean. Give me a reason why I shouldn't bring you back and kill you again and again and again.
Nice callback there to of course what Stella has done to Hopper and all of his friends. Like, she's in there trying to like tell Butterfly off for like, oh, you did this bad thing, and all the while the threat she's using is in reference to the atrocious thing that Stella herself has done. Stella, like, as Butterfly points out there, like, as if bringing him back actually undoes all the times that he's been killed, especially considering that Hopper starts to remember and starts to break the loop.
Silo Hopper. Dr. Fractal started speaking.
These are both two mayors who have done terrible things, and Butterfly's self-esteem is just shattered by this point. So she is a lot more willing to just give in to her mistakes than Stella is at this point. And Stella will eventually, which leads to what happens in the finale. It's on this island that Stella refuses to acknowledge her mistakes, where she acts like a hypocrite whilst calling Butterfly out for the things Butterfly has also done wrong. And it is on an island at the end of the story that Stella finally admits to herself that she's done these terrible things. At least that was the idea. I think I could have been a lot more specific with that being my intention.
What did Fractal do to me? What did he do to the stable?
I don't know how long we're going to be trapped in here, but I don't want to see your face, Butterfly.
Trust me, the feeling is mutual. Whatever Fractal does to you, I hope it hurts.
You never learn.
What are you gonna do to me? Scream at me again? Start another conversation that goes nowhere?
I'm going to beat the shit out of you again.
Oh look, it's me lampshading my own writing. I think the crazy calculator bitch line, I swear that was from a different Terminal Secret script that I was calling back to, or I just really enjoyed the insult.
She would be the firm hoof that made the tough choices, and I would be the fun.
And we're back to Blue Ball. Life of the party. Happiest pony in Terminal Secrets.
I don't know how much time had passed since Yentl, but things had changed in the stable control basement. The Overmare shut herself in her office. She sat in her chair.
So, I did.
I'm not sure if she did it by accident.
I'm looking at this now, and it just occurs to me how, god damn, I really think, on the one hand, I think I've written this prose well. I do think I've written the description of what is happening well. I think I'm getting through a harrowing scene. It is effective, but I can't help but wonder if it might not have been a lot more effective if I had, if I'd actually written that as a scene, not as Blue Ball monologuing and describing what happened. I think it might have been a lot more it might have been a lot more impactful to see that, but I think it's also possible it might have been going too far. I think there are points in this episode where I get really close to the line before I'm just depicting misery porn. I don't think I crossed the line. I think I come close. And I cannot say for sure whether or not I made the right call.
And the world shut down. The distance vanishing.
Okay, that's a bit weird, that having Blue Ball and Topaz arrive and then cutting to Stella. I get what I was going for. I was trying to set that up, get you interested in what was happening before cutting away. Like, trying to help with the pacing, but I think that interaction between Blue Ball and Topaz was a bit too short. I probably would have added an extra, like, 30 seconds worth of conversation just to tease out the next scene a little more before cutting away to Stella monologuing over here.
My ability to perceive, to my understanding of how a world was constructed, nothing was out of place. The crashing of the blue-green upon itself.
Again, like, Stella references that she has constructed this world, but it makes me think that maybe I should have had a sequence of her constructing the world. You know, maybe the beach is the only part of this world that she creates instinctively as she's trying to escape from Fractal, and then maybe we get scenes later of her trying to put more of the world together. That might have been quite nice, just giving us a chance to get to know Stella more by herself. Like, I am trying to give that here. I can see it. But I don't think it's not as effective as, at the end of the day, showing is usually a lot more effective, but it's not. Anyone who says show don't tell is a hard and fast 100% of the time rule. I wouldn't completely take that at face value. There are a lot of points where telling is just more effective, where it bridges a scene better, where it helps with the pacing. But this is a scenario where I think showing might have been a lot more effective, especially because I do think I've got this monologue going just a little bit too long.
Explain why her head never once tilted or shifted. Maybe she only activated when I drew near. That was the thought that crossed my mind in the beginning. But it wasn't the only thought I had. I think,
I can see there are certain parts of this that I think definitely needed to be here, but I think, you know, it's the reason I've done this 2 years later is that, you know, with 2 years of experience, I'm definitely just seeing a lot of places where I could have tweaked, things I could have cut or rearranged. I'm not out here trying to be hard on myself. I am out here looking at my work from 2 years ago from the perspective of someone who has now improved with 2 years of writing, and seeing things that I would do differently now. If I wasn't finding a lot of things to critique in my own work from 2 years ago, I'd be disappointed in myself.
I'm lonely.
You get used to it.
Are you real?
I'm not talking philosophy with you.
That.
You don't move when I'm not around. Is that because you only exist when I'm there?
Well, that's a pretty self-fucking-centered outlook on life.
I'm not used to having an outlook on life at all.
Needle. They did such a good job. No one swears like Needle Stitch. There's just this sharpness to the way that Needle does, like, frustration and anger. And it comes out whenever they swear. I gave Butterfly, like, a lot more swear words than the other cast members because I knew full well that Needle could take swearing and just, like, make a fucking art form out of it. With Stella, it's meant to kind of shock you. With Blue Ball, it's kind of just meant to be normal. Like, that's just part of his everyday language. That's just who he is at this point.
Excited or amazed? This much open space, it's been so much more to the world than I could have ever found before. But I'm just sitting here. I don't move. I don't speak.
Why?
I do like this. I do think this little thing here still holds up.
How far away from that am I now? Everyone starts out playing with blocks. We're all basically the same at that point.
Like, the depression that Butterfly is feeling, the, like, almost shattering of her soul and self-esteem, she can't even bring herself to explore the sky, the grass, the mountains, the water.
I held to the belief that I'd find a way to fix it. I just wanted to be a good pony in the end. Don't I deserve redemption?
Kill the world.
Pardon?
It's something Dr. Fractal's been talking about for years. The world is this...
Ah, there we go. Trying to explain kill the world again. Again, this is something that I think... I could have I definitely know I could have executed on this a lot better. If only because I think I've just...
Blue Ball, I wouldn't ask for your help if I didn't need it, but this is important.
I think the characters made... I made such a big deal out of it, and I don't think it's as groundbreaking or mind-blowing of a philosophical concept as the writer I was 4 years ago thought it was.
I don't mean to be harsh, but...
Amazingly, you being harsh is not the problem I have with you. It's more the child...
Shut up. Are you fucking crazy?
Kirby!
I know the details about what happened.
This is brilliant.
Where Fractal kills everyone.
The way...
What's the point? We're surviving to survive.
The way he delivered that line is kind of beautiful.
What are we gonna do with our lives? Does anyone here have anything planned for tomorrow? Huh? What about the day after that?
Are you drunk?
No, I am very sober. And I am entirely in control of myself.
It doesn't
Blue Ball is just... Angry Blue Ball is fantastic. The performance on him is just really, really good as he just loses control of himself.
Have a choice!
Between the stable, between hundreds of lives, and the life of one kid. And don't you dare act like it doesn't tear me apart every second. That shit wasn't easy.
See how much I care? Yeah, not one bit. Go wallow in how shitty you feel. Die that way.
So you're just gonna leave their bodies there?
No, I'm going to go...
Oh, god damn.
I just don't want your help when I do it. It was my idea.
I really like how Blue Ball is written here. Okay, except for that line, that I'll lay my hooves on you. Like, I felt iffy about it at the time, but I liked the line. So I just had Blue Ball kind of back off on the point. But I'm gonna be honest, I probably wouldn't have included that if I was writing this now. I think it's not that Topaz doesn't deserve a lot of a lot of vitriol directed at her. She is a child murderer, but I think that turn of phrase is just a little rough.
Thank you very much. Okay, so what I've been trying to say...
This microphone is heavy. I could put it in like a mic stand, but the mic stand is currently holding my cell phone, which is recording this video. I'm a very professional filmmaker, I promise.
In front of us. Yes, it's all just a simulation, but you can feel everything else that goes on in here. So, why not go for a swim?
Why haven't you?
I mean... I wouldn't know.
This is...
I grew up in a stable. None of us know how to swim.
Why would you think I know how to swim?
Neither of them would know how to swim. Like...
You're really smart.
I'm a computer program. I'm a mess of spellwork and cables and codes and...
And I'm a mess of nerves and meat. What's your point?
That's not a convincing argument.
Okay, that is just... Butterfly is making a terrible point there, and I'm glad Stella's pointing it out. I just don't think it's,
As long as you don't punch me again, we should be fine.
This doesn't fix the problem that either of us knows how to swim.
I really still like... I really like this scene overall.
The water's lovely.
And I think this seems like a really good point to bring up the work that Daniel Mohan did on the artwork for the characters. And frankly, I think it's sinful that I haven't brought it up yet. Goddamn, it is so cute and so expressive. And just a little bit over the top, but in exactly the right way. And he did it for free, refused payment, and and under an incredibly tight schedule. He loved the idea, and like Mohan's just one of the most helpful human beings on the face of the planet, and it was genuinely. It was so great getting to work with him again. Because, I mean, Mohan taught me how to write. He took me into the writing team at Stabletech. He showed me the ropes. He got me started. He helped me out when Terminal Secrets was just beginning at Stabletech. So it was genuinely, it really was awesome to have him on board and work with him in this last... in this last episode.
Give the eulogy now.
Fine.
God damn, Whisper just nailed that line. Like, the actors really can do anger very well. Writing speeches is difficult, and I remember that Blue Ball has another speech at the end of the episode, and I remember not actually being happy with it, like, as it aired. I remember watching it with everyone in the marathon stream and being a bit unhappy with how I'd written it. But at the end of the day, the thing is, speeches are hard to give. But awkward speeches are slightly a little bit easier to write because, well, speeches are inherently a little bit awkward. And it allows a bad speech, an awkward speech, is a really good way to reveal the flaw of your character as they try and give a perspective that I want you as the audience to know is wrong.
I think that's the saying. Pretty sure that's the saying. So the Overmare...
And Blue Ball kind of nails it there, giving off his flaw here as someone who tries to just look on the bright side of whatever's happening, refuses to acknowledge the bad, refuses to mourn, refuses to actually face and deal with the negative sides of his emotions. He is just too busy trying to deal with everyone else's shit, trying to help everyone else, and he never makes time for himself, so that even when he's ended up at a point where he doesn't want to help anyone else, he's also not helping himself, and now he's just really getting inside his own head.
Find a bright side. That's the moral.
Morning, Butterfly.
Hi.
Would you...
Okay, I will agree. I think that was a solid scene transition.
Okay. Are you okay?
Aw, she's so happy. Well, Stella is. Butterfly is depressed and anxious.
I don't understand.
Of course you don't.
Pardon?
It's just a pony thing. You wouldn't understand.
I've spent years analyzing pony behavior.
But you're not actually one of us. You're not even close.
That was uncalled for.
Was it? Are we suddenly friends now, Stella?
It's Rose. Please.
Actually, it's Crusader Mainframe. And did you think we were just going to be friends?
God damn, Butterfly.
After everything I have done?
If you had a problem with me this whole time...
Butterfly, you can't do that. You can't do that. She wants to change her name. You've got to use her new name, Butterfly, you fucking bitch.
We'll just stick it out for a while and maybe we'll get rescued. But that's not happening. You want to know what's different today? Today's the day I realize that no one is coming for us. I am stuck in this simulation with you for the rest of the time.
I didn't want to have them, like, just immediately make up. This is... Part 2 is a story about their friendship. This is the core of the Terminal Secrets finale. But... but I didn't necessarily want them to just start talking, be friends, and it's a completely, like, smooth sailing all the way to the top of the peak right there. It plateaus, it dips, it has bumps. There are points where their personalities grate on each other, where the things they've done to each other and the things that they've said to each other have really, like, just hurt it just leads to them continuing to hurt each other.
I already told you, I don't want to talk to you today.
I don't exist on your whims, Butterfly. I'm not here for you to decide when I can and can't talk to my friend.
Friend? When were we ever friends?
For the last few years in this fucking dream? Or was every moment of it a lie?
I need some time alone.
I think I could have done a better job at getting across the idea that they've now been in this, simulation for more than a year. Like, they tell it to you, but I feel like the passage of time hasn't really been made to pass. Like, a montage sequence at some point, I think, would have been a bit welcome.
Years inside this simulation.
And?
Have the two of you actually become friends?
I don't see how that's...
It was kind of nice to have Fractal without any of the vocal effects. Like, I love the sound effects on Fractal. They make that character. But I think it was important for these scenes here for Fractal to sound human as he speaks to Stella, that it's just a pure interaction between these two.
A moment of high...
Yes, moment of high emotions. At some point, it just leads to exhaustion.
I know. I'm looking for what comes next, Rose.
We are.
What?
Butterfly and I. We are friends. And some days we both remember all the things we've done, and it ends with us going our separate ways.
There's me nicking from Sorkin again, having a character ask a question, have it not be answered, have them trail off to a completely different topic of conversation before having the character loop back to answer the question from early on. It is a trick that does not work if you do it too much, but it can be a fun writing trick, and it can be fun for a conversation. But I don't think I used it quite as effectively as I could. But that's like that's part of the point of this process. I should probably go to the doctor again.
Going on at any given moment. This was my haven. It was where anyone could come to find me, assuming they knew where it was or that I'd be there.
We're back to Blue Ball, and Blue Ball is having a really bad time.
I valued my privacy in those days.
What the shit was that?
I am sorely regretting telling you about this place.
Just find a bright side.
And the return of Topaz, and I think this is a time to talk about something that's really bugged me for a while, which is my biggest mistake in Terminal Secrets is the way I've handled Topaz's character. Starting from part 2, I mean. Because I've set her up really, really well. We've got someone who is desperate to help the people around her, who's been driven to the point of breaking, who has killed a child as a way of maintaining that philosophy, clearly regrets it, and I do nothing with her story. she exists in part 2 exclusively for the development of Blue Ball, for his arc, and she doesn't even get a farewell scene. She just vanishes from the story. And that's still 2 years later, 2 years after the airing, 4 years after I wrote the script. That really sits in my head and grates at me because I think it was a genuine fuck up. I really do think it was quite a mistake. I'm fine with her helping Blue Ball, and the idea was that Blue Ball would be so like in his own head that he's not focusing on Topaz, but at no point does anyone try to help Topaz. Like, we don't get a scene with Baxter trying to help Topaz, or Blue Ball, once he gets his head out of his ass, tries to help Topaz, or Topaz, like, sitting him down and being like, this is what I am going through. Yeah. I've been wanting to get that off my chest for a while, to be honest.
Is that even possible? It's the toughest exam the stable has.
Dude,
I love this. I genuinely do love that that Butterfly just lucked into the analyst job, because I felt like I needed to explain why she, in like the primary job of the stable, she is a fucking terrible analyst. She is so bad at her job. She doesn't know basic facts about her job or the history of the other stables.
Like at all.
You can always talk about it with me.
Probably.
You're still a long way to go before we're done for the day.
That's not going to cheer me up. Hiking is exhausting.
I know, but think about what the view will be. Come on. Well, of course.
Oh man, I love these two in this scene. They're just the eager joy that Stella has in this scene. Genuine, is so heart-lifting. It's so wonderful. It's really a refreshing moment. I really like that we got to get this scene of these two talking to each other and really having bonded as friends.
I'm a pretty smart pony. You bitch.
Okay.
Oh my god. Stella, you absolute bitch.
Before the bombs fell, help me figure out how the general appearance was going to come across. And then...
Now, this I didn't feel that I needed to explain any of this, but I thought it would be quite a nice way of just reminding you how fast a computer's mind works, especially Crusader mainframe like Stella, because ideally, it leads to Fractal's plan of like, if someone was fully sentient, had the processing capacity of Stella, and had all the information of all of the experiments, what would that person be like? How intelligent would they be? How much could they predict of pony behavior? How much of the world could they possibly rebuild? That was Fractal's plan. Well, his plan was to create the perfect being. Fractal didn't really care about like what they would do with the power. He just wanted to give someone the power, which is kind of an irresponsible move.
Realistic bodies I possibly could for us to inhabit. Well, for me to inhabit. I didn't expect you.
How long did it take you to do all of this?
Oh, a few seconds. I didn't have much more time than that because my primary focus was erecting a barrier to prevent Fractal's influence. Not that that was too effective. He can still talk to me sometimes, but...
Wow, it was not even her primary focus. I'm not saying I created a super smart anime character who can do everything perfectly, but I think I kinda did.
I'm starting to see Dr. Fractal's point a little.
Meaning?
Well, he wants you to become the perfect being, right? A fully self-aware AI with the information of thousands of lives lived. What you could do with all that information, with your processing...
At the end of the day, this just leans back into like my biggest issue with all of the vault experiments, all of the stable experiments, is that what happens to all of that information? What's the point of doing these experiments if the data isn't going to be harvested and used for anything? And it's weirdly something that like, as far as I recall, the Fallout universe never actually addresses. The Fallout Equestria universe definitely doesn't. The analysis table as a whole was my answer to that question, but it brings in another question of, when is the end of the experiment? When do these ponies start using this information to rebuild society? And, like, Stable-Tech really either didn't think that far or didn't care, or just thought it would take hundreds and hundreds of years. And Dr. Fractal really... I think I really could have written a much more likable version of Fractal if I'd had him see that as a flaw and actually want to help, but... Oh shit, the friendship book. So, this is, of course, a very direct reference to My Little Pony. This is the book that Twilight and her friends wrote and published. It's the journal. And of course, the reaction that Butterfly experiences from everyone as she feels like she can't take the book out of the library. It's a book for kids, you know. That's something that all of like MLP fans in general, that's an anxiety that you feel, is like, hey, you can't listen to the adventures of Twilight Sparkle and her friendship lessons. It just becomes the friendship book. I put a lot of references and a lot of retrospective stuff and a lot of self-referencing. A lot of myself went into the story of friendship contract.
Feelings, every pony.
This coming from Miss 100% in love with mint cream over here.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Don't think I never noticed how the body you made for yourself in the simulation is identical to mint cream.
That was Mohan's idea, by the way. If I recall, that was Mohan's idea to just, while we were trying to work out what Stella's human form would be, because Mohan created mint cream as a character.
About your colossal crush on mint cream.
La la la, I can't hear you.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
I'm not gonna lie, I 100% crowbarred that into the scene, but I am so glad it's there, and I still think it sits well.
I had the impression that I was a whore.
I'm not sure what do you mean.
Oh, please.
Okay, this is another thing that I still think doesn't land super duper well. So, Needle and I are both bi, and a thing that both of us had, the thing that both of us have had to deal with in the past is people who just assumed that bisexual people are promiscuous naturally. And I wanted to just kind of have that be a reference in there. But I think it accidentally came out like I was making that suggestion, or that either one of these characters actually believed that. It's a bit of a silly joke, especially because
I'll just rest here and catch
I should clarify that in my opinion, as the years have gone by, that I think Butterfly thinks that she is straight. She is pretty sure, but like I am 100% willing to accept any and all ships of Stella and Butterfly. Like, fucking go for it. I ship them myself. I am more... So the reason I didn't, like, outwardly make them be in a relationship is because I wanted it to be a standard friendship that saves the day. But I do think they work really well as a couple. I'll go into more about like the friendship stuff, and we actually get to that point in the story, of course.
I just like to sit by myself.
So this is also very much a bit of self-referencing here. There are a lot of points where I just don't really want to talk to people or deal with people, and I just really want to sit in silence. And like a lot of my closest friends, like my roommate, like Kayla, like Cinder, like Needle, are all people who are willing to just be with me
say would help.
without
and
like saying,
I can sit here with you.
without needing me to say anything, without needing me to engage. You know, sometimes I'll be there because I still want like the presence of another person, but not necessarily. I don't want to have to interact. I don't want to have to engage. And a lot of my closest friends are people who have been willing to put up with my shit there. And they'll talk and I'll listen and we'll have a very good time. God damn, this is I think this is my personal favorite of Kelly's work, especially on this soundtrack. The image on the background here is a background that I'd made for a completely separate animation that I was going to do for the channel that I just never got around to finishing. But it worked quite well for this in the end. But, God damn. There's this beauty in the song that Kelly has made. I love it. It really is hard to talk about the things the song makes me feel, because I think it also just brings back, like 2019, getting the song while I was on the way to work and playing it for my roommate who was driving us to work, and just sitting there and hearing this for the first time and thinking that someone had sat down and made original music for something that I had written, for a project that we had all built together. And the emotions that I felt back then they're still very much here right now, and I think it is affecting me. So instead I'm going to talk about that little easel you can see up at the top over there. That's the character in the animation I'd originally made this for was supposed to be painting. And I just didn't bother to take it out when I made the art.
And Stella?
Yes, Butterfly?
Thank you for, like...
Of course.
I feel like, despite the fact that their friendship has these up and down moments, the scene is supposed to be the one that seals the deal, but it's that moment when the music kicks in that I think fully grounds that these two are the best of friends. They are unbreakable in their bond. All right, Blue Ball, take it away. Gimme the yelling.
For Butterfly.
And always with the fucking self-pity! Stable 81 wasn't your fault, none of it was! If you didn't purge this...
I really like this sequence, or at least I remember liking this sequence. The idea was that Blue Ball, in his attempts to finally in his attempts to reach catharsis, just levies a lot of really unfair but honest emotions. And I really think that was important to kind of depict that part of this process. What he feels is true, even if it's not true in reality. It is true in his heart, and he knows full well that there are points where he knows he's being unfair, where he knows he's not even being true to her actions, but it has to be true to him for him to feel it, and it makes it a really complicated emotional scene. And thank you to Kirby for I like that line. Thank you to Kirby for recording the scene twice, because his audio cut out halfway through the scene, and I had to go back to him and ask him to re-record this very difficult emotional scene. And I think he fucking nailed it. It is one of my favorite scenes in anything that I've ever made. And I think just everyone involved just knocked it out of the park.
Some kind coming from inside the stable.
I thought Fractal had exclusive control over any...
Okay, so we've now... I'm kind of like fucking with the timeline a little bit here, because now this takes place after the next scene. And thank you to everyone who was able to follow the timeline fuckery in episode 6 across part 1 and part 2, across all of the scenes. Thank you to everyone who was able to follow the timeline fuckery, and I completely understand if you did not. Topaz, you sassy bitch.
Well, I don't have a lot of time, and this is important. Butterfly and I have been trapped in a simulation for the last few years.
Butterfly? Does that mean she's alive?
Blueball, this is urgent. You need...
Did I have to use the evil Stella face there? I mean, I get what I was trying to go for, that it was the version of Stella that, like, he wasn't aware of, but I don't know.
I picked the kind of wine that the overmares of stable control have stored in their offices for 200 years.
I guess sometimes the simplest solution is...
I do quite like the transition from scene to scene of Stella saying, like, you gotta listen to me, this is important, and cutting to the scene, implying that this is what is about to be explained to Blue Ball as well as us.
Never got around talking about it.
Oh, it's this idea that Dr. Fractal came up with.
Okay, let's explain why the first episode was actually called Kill the World.
You don't make. Or imagine a story, a book written by a group of ponies who worked hard and made 1,000 different choices that may or may not have changed their lives in the process of making that book. If you didn't read that book, then in your mind, and to your perception,
I've got to wonder, I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure I was just venting in that sequence about about how low the viewing numbers for the Terminal Secrets series was. Hilarious, considering that I think this episode has less than 2,000 views. I think for the first year, the finale had less than 1,000 views. So I wouldn't be surprised if that sequence was me just venting a little bit, but you know, the algorithm is what it is.
Other ponies. Had Vienna chosen not to return to being Aria Moon, she would have killed the world in which her stable door opened, and they became happy. In choosing to...
Yeah, looking at this explanation again, I don't think it's that good of an idea to make such a big... It's literally just we make choices. It can be boiled down to we choose one path instead of another.
The world in which spare parts got to survive.
So it's just...
And I get that, like, I get what I was going for.
An exercise in appreciating the weight of every choice you make.
And so...
And I can see I guess I must have realized it as I was writing it, because I can see the writing in Butterfly is clearly trying to lampshade how pretentious it is. But at the end of the day, lampshading something pretentious and still saying the pretentious thing doesn't actually mean you didn't do the pretentious thing.
Anyone who thought it would mean something, that it would add up to anything, that any of this world goes the way they thought it would, they were very wrong.
No.
Okay, that much very much is actually... That is me just metatextually saying... saying, this story is not going to go the way you think it's going to go. This is not going to have a happy ending.
There is no way I'm recreating hangovers.
But you said you recreated both pleasure and...
Part of me kind of wishes Stella... Oh god. Part of me kind of wishes that there had... I would never have done it, and I still wouldn't, but I would love to see a scene of them after this, if Butterfly hadn't died, of them waking up in the morning and Butterfly wakes up with a hangover and says, like, I recreated hangovers just for you. I think that would have been a really fun scene. Maybe one of those like little montage scenes earlier on.
Something upbeat.
Okay.
The revelation of Butterfly's special talent is something that I think I wanted to make it really... Like, she's just sort of a hand wave thing. Like, she's just like, yes, this is my special talent. But, like... So, I think it ended up actually going over a couple people's heads. Like, there were a couple people who were like, "Wait, you mentioned her special talent?" I did think it would get a lot more of a gasp than it actually did. But it's not like I've alluded to Butterfly's special talent before this episode. We just had their, we had their butt stamps. Out from the glow, take me home. Yes, I did want them to sing the line back to Fallout, because I genuinely I think that's a fun line that Skybolt had in his version here.
Where in Equestria did you learn to do this?
In the stable, of course.
No, but I mean, where? You're really good.
Well, I just kind of figured it out one day. Same day I took the analysis exam.
But
no more questions. Just stand up. Stand up and
so the
I don't know how. Just move with the rhythm.
Oh, it's so cute. I really love this. Back to Fallout, out from the glow. Yeah, it's. I'm not gonna lie, this scene still holds a little bit. This scene still holds up to me. I know that this is an episode with multiple song breaks in it. I think we've still got 2 more after this, 3. But if it doesn't hold up, or at least this one holds up so well. It's just a delightful, relaxing, light-hearted scene of 2 people being friends. Back to Fallout, out from the glow, take me home to the vault. Broken roads, take me home to the place I belong. Back to Fallout, out from the glow, take me home to the vault. Take me home to the vault. Take me home to the vault.
Oh, come on, do another. Do another.
I really like that scene.
Sure. Pick something slow this time. Interesting choice.
Would you believe me if I said I picked it at random?
Definitely not. See? There you go. You're not awful at this.
Really?
No, you're the worst dancer in this world.
In the world where only me and the mayor who's special.
So, I think it is really. I've spoken before that Needle does a very good job with angry characters, but they really do also have such a good job doing these quiet, intimately kind scenes. I really do enjoy it. And I think it comes out, their performance comes out so strongly. That strength comes out so strongly in the scene as Butterfly explains this very personal part of herself that I think only Spare Parts knew.
Total fluke. I passed the toughest exam in our stable.
I think it was also important to give Butterfly a monologue and the sequence here that just humanizes her a lot more, in something without the complication of the bad things that she's done, the bad choices that she's made. Just obviously it's still complicated by kind of tragedy in a way of her own self-loathing, her own lack of confidence.
Longer than any of my peers. But
even though it is complicated by those things, it is kind of it is really nice to hear her talking about this thing that made her.
It was me. My special talent
It.
just feel like being good at dancing.
She's good at being herself.
Being nice.
It's a personal moment for her, but there's that fear that like her skill isn't just dancing, that it is being herself. But she is someone who's never felt like she was safe to be herself, who has never felt confident in herself. So much time has been wasted by Butterfly believing that she was never a pony worth being. And I think it explains a lot about why she is the way she is.
Everyone would think I was born to be an analyst. So, yeah.
She wasn't born to be an analyst, she was born to be Butterfly Stitch, and I'm at least happy that she got to be Butterfly in these last few scenes, that she actually did get to be herself, and that she got to meet someone who let her be herself.
All the experiments. What's happening? Butterfly?
I've put her on hold for the meantime.
Fractal. Get out of here. Get out of my...
Fractal, you're such a dick.
After Hop died, after I took control, you buried yourself in here, in this simulation.
I think it would have been nice to have a couple of sequences that foreshadowed this, that foreshadowed the idea that Fractal has actually been listening to everything.
I didn't make this.
Not from scratch, not the core, just everything on top.
So we're really...
You're in Stable 10, yes. Well, what's left of it.
So Butterfly.
Yeah, I think it could have foreshadowed that better. Have a couple of references to the fact that Fractal was in... Stella's head this whole time, that he's heard everything, that Butterfly is a brain in a jar, that they've been in Stable 10 this whole time. I think there are definitely ways that I could have referenced in order to make these three reveals, to make them hit a little bit harder, because if you think back to it, okay, cool, it's been foreshadowed. I wish I'd done that.
I've been yanking away your attention every now and then, whenever this world glitches.
Again, this is like me just re-clarifying something that has been happening from Blue Ball's perspective, because it was the events of part 1, but we don't actually see Stella go through this in part 2. And the question I have to ask to myself of 4 years ago, when I wrote this, is why? Why did you not have a scene of that? I mean, I get the script is long. By this point, it is a part 1 and part 2 combined is a 2-hour script, which is easily the longest Terminal Secret script. And a lot of the changes that I've recommended and suggested probably would have put another half an hour, if not an hour, onto it. But I think it would have been worth it. Would have really expanded. Like, we probably wouldn't have released it in 2019 though. It would have been a 2020 release. But you know, we could have started 2020 off really well.
I've taken the information of every Staple experiment, every audio log, every terminal entry, all the data we have separately.
I think this, speaking from the perspective of acting out Fractal, I actually did try to make him sound likable and empathetic in this sequence. That he genuinely does care for Rose.
Once you have it, let it interface with your new body and it'll be done.
What'll happen to you? You planning to hit your...
I had to, for a lot of things for this ending, I had to ask Skybolt's permission for things, like using the East Corp Sentinel droid, like using the East Corp Gauntlet, like using confessions in the end, and he was very kind in letting me pull these things from his stories. Whilst our worlds have existed, they exist in the same world, they exist side by side, we don't like we have a small couple of references here and there, but we tried not to cross over too many times, with this ending being the biggest departure from that tradition. Which I'm very glad that Sky helped me facilitate that. Where the entrance is.
Was this always a part of your plan? Dying?
I just wanted the best for you.
What am I supposed to do when I leave?
I have no idea.
Fractal is some variation of an abusive parent who thinks he's doing what's right. And I think I could have done a better job of making him sympathetic. I've outlined 1 or 2 notes already about places where I think I could have done that.
Since Fractal took over, time worked differently for them.
Okay, so here comes probably my least favorite scene in Terminal Secrets. At least I remember it being. We'll see how it actually hits. The issue, of course, here is that this is, as far as I recall, Topaz's last scene, where she just vanishes out of nowhere, and, of course, me trying to write an inspiring monologue, which kind of...
I've got control of the stable again. I'm opening the stable doors. You have to get everyone out of here quickly.
Which kind of undermines the whole idea that Blue Ball wasn't supposed to be important. He's supposed to be that trope flipped upside down, and yet I actually ended up playing right into it. I ended up recreating the trope almost in its entirety.
What are you doing?
Getting everyone out of here.
Even if we tell everyone the door...
Like, I get his arc naturally was leading to this point, but I definitely think I could have tried to make it more self-contained. It might have been more interesting if Blue Ball getting outside of his own ass maybe could have led to him counseling and helping Topaz, and having Topaz give the speech. Maybe I am spitballing. I can't tell you off the top of my head whether or not that would have been the good call. It might have been a good call. But I won't know unless I actually sit down for a couple of hours and try and work out the different directions that I could have taken that ending part of the story. Which I'm probably not going to end up doing that. I mean, I don't exactly spend a lot of time working on AUs for my own writing. Writing them the first time around is hard enough, thank you very much.
Walked through what used to be the ramshackle market of the basement and through the sleeping quarters.
I do kind of like that we tell you that Fractal is dead early on, that she's got control of the stable, without necessarily showing you how it happened. That's got to come a little bit later. Again, on the critique side, I think I probably could have dropped a little bit of conversation, a little bit more nuggets into that conversation regarding,
Absolutely was.
Okay, I need to interrupt myself and just bring up another thing. Topaz there saying weak source. So Topaz's voice actor, Whisper, they and I have been in an argument for about 2 years now as to whether or not weak source is a phrase that people say in real life. I argue that it is. They argue incorrectly that no one says weak source. And every time I find an example of someone in real life saying the phrase weak source, I send it to them, and they get very grumpy with me because I am a little shit. I am the worst person to be friends with, I promise.
Communication from them in years, and let's be honest, what good are those experiments going to do if the information stays down here? Which brings me to my real point.
This microphone was traced off of a PNG of a real microphone because I can't draw. Around 2 hours before this episode aired, I was making the last graphics for this episode as we were doing the marathon stream.
To our old lives, we're not just going back up top. We're going out of this stable. Stella has agreed to let us out. She's opening the stable door, so come on, everyone. We're leaving. We're gonna go out into Equestria, and we're gonna make our own paradise. We write our own deliverance.
It's not a bad, oh god. I forgot the Hamilton reference that I kind of shoehorned in at the end there. I like making references to things is fine, but I do think that I think that was a little bit shoehorned in. It's a bit of a it is almost there for me to say to myself, I put a Hamilton reference in 2019.
You heard him.
Yeah.
Well, 2 years. I wrote it 2 years before that, so 2017.
I know he created you and all, but...
Oof. Okay, we're here at the heartbreaker scene. Butterfly Stitch fucking dies.
I mean...
The first time I really lost my temper with you...
Why didn't you say anything?
I figured if I just ignored it, we wouldn't have to face the truth.
You know, having now just watched that scene of Butterfly losing her temper with Rose, I don't think I foreshadowed or suggested that Butterfly realized she was dead. She did know that she did admit that she knew she wasn't getting out of the experiment or out of this world, but I don't necessarily know if that effectively communicated the possibility that Butterfly knew she was actually a brain in a jar. Again, I think a small tweak, just like one changed line of dialogue, I think could have just altered that a little bit more.
The spell that helped create me, they're in flux, in this state I can't quite explain, but I can feel it.
I like this paragraph here, not because it's any good. I think this paragraph is awful, but it really is just me giving like, here's some magical technical gobbledygook to explain why the next scene is going to happen. And I don't think it actually stands up to any scrutiny, and it's kind of ridiculous, and it's very stupid, but it's there. It is what it is. At the end of the day, it exists to make the emotions of the next scene, of the rest of the scene, valid, and I think it accomplishes that goal, even if it doesn't necessarily stand up to like a mildly strong wind of scrutiny.
Don't know where. Don't know where.
Having them sing together is really nice.
I know we'll meet again.
I liked the idea that for them there really was nothing else that they had left to say to each other about the situation, so they just sing it. They just lean back into this beautiful moment that they shared a couple of minutes ago. Maddie goes very hard on that last line, and it is great.
I'm glad I got to be your friend.
Goddamn.
All these years, Rose.
I really liked getting to use like a full screen version of the butterfly, of Butterfly's artwork there. I think it helps to add this kick to the emotions of the moment. And of course, Butterfly did get to be a good pony in the end, which is what she wanted. She got to be herself, and she got to learn that the pony who she is, she got to learn that Butterfly Stitch was a good pony, that Butterfly was a pony worth being. And I think it's a really nice moment. I think this probably maybe confused some people into thinking that this was the end of the episode, with this cut to black and the music playing, but I don't regret the decision. I think the black screen and just letting their friendship song play again, but this time. So Kelly and I went back and forth on this one. Originally, I wanted to have this version of the song with just the piano play during their meditation scene, and have the full version with all the strings play here. But Kelly, and I completely agree with him, which is why we went with this version in the end, was to switch them around so that you've got the full string version of them playing when they're together. And despite how beautiful this version is, it's just Stella's part of the song playing. It's just the one person's part of the song playing. It's not both of them because one of these friends is dead. And it is a mournful, tragic, sorrowful version of a bonding moment that we got to have earlier. I think it is a really good musical progression that Kelly pulled off with that.
Oh no.
And Rose is now like this is existing art that we had been using for our East Corp mascot.
What are you listening to?
Because I just did not have time getting toward the end of this, so I just used this one because it didn't have any no mouth, no lip sync, no need to create new art, just boom, robot.
The joke?
All this time, all these years, we've been here.
Yeah.
I think perhaps I thought the fact that they're on an island is something that I thought was funnier than I think a lot of other people did. But I think I was thinking so much of what the implications of the island meant, that Stella would be trapped. And yes, Blue Ball could have gotten in a boat and got her across, but it's more of... This was more a case of Stella wanting to be trapped.
In a map to a nearby settlement. There's a note.
I couldn't not reference... I knew I was going to make this reference when I wrote the Stables episode of the Wasteland Survival Guide that suggested that the book would be left outside of Stables. I think that was the episode. But so that I knew that we would make this reference here, which was fun. Ditsy's made her way everywhere.
Onto this gauntlet. Take it to whoever is on the other side.
I like this. I still think this holds up the idea that she's achieved this perfect sentience and she hasn't accepted Fractal's gift of the stable information. She is giving it to Blue Ball.
I did.
That body wasn't very well made.
And now comes the most controversial choice that I made in Terminal Secrets: stranding Rose on the island. It is a dark moment, but it is a moment that both Blue Ball and Rose agree to. Even if Blue Ball got a boat and brought it back to her, even if he felt like that was what he should do, I don't think Rose would get on. And we addressed this when speaking about the ending to Confessions, that potentially the Rose part of the story isn't true either. DJ Pony tells a lot of lies to try and protect people's identities. She might be on the island, she might not. That gets to be up to you guys. You get to pick that. For me, she's still on the island, but I think there are happier things on the way for her. I say this knowing because I've accidentally written a couple of sequels to Terminal Secrets, even though I'll never make them. I like that that Butterfly gets buried out by the water. I like that their last moment together has Stella, Rose, and Blue Ball working together to just bury her and lay her to rest. I think Butterfly would have liked that if her two favorite ponies, who were still alive, if she knew that they did that together. I think that would have meant a lot to Butterfly. Of course, I couldn't not use "Take Me Home to the Vault" again. It is such a fantastic song, and also because I think that it does a good job of transitioning to the epilogue scene. So I've got a couple of notes about the scene. Firstly is that it makes use of what the hell was that? Of the Trocadero song that was used to end Red vs. Blue Season 6 and Season 10. Which again, yes, lots of Red vs. Blue references. This is me. So I definitely wanted to call back to the emotions of those endings and to the feeling of endings with this. I think this was first wave. I thought it was. I wanted to have Freezy and Chrysanthemum in this scene just because I play Chrysanthemum and because I wanted to make my own goodbye to the series and to Fallout Equestria.
I need to look her in the eye. Not sure what I'm gonna say, but...
And also because I think it fit in quite nicely because Pink Pippin was the character that they knew.
That's just the end of the story.
Blue Ball, are you okay?
I think it was important for a lot of those events to happen, Blue Ball to get closure, and yes, for me, metatextually to say my goodbye. As you'll see, I talk about, like, you know, we immediately reference Blue Ball talking about, you know, reading a good book that changes the course of your life, which of course, and Chrysanthemum saying, you know, from my experience, you should always open the book. You should always take that leap, which is, obviously that is not Chrysanthemum, that is me as James Vermont talking about this book. Talking about Fallout Equestria and what this changed for me in my life, what this set the course for a 10-year journey that I went on, making content, telling stories, meeting friends. I wouldn't be in a lot of the places that I am at the moment, mentally or work-wise or emotionally, if it wasn't for this book, flaws and all. And I wanted to express that gratitude and that emotion in this final scene, and have my own goodbye to Fallout Equestria and to Terminal Secrets.
That Blue Ball would have given us our longest ever episode, but...
And of course, the big twist. I had to save DJ Pony for that last sentence, so that it could save the twist for the last possible second.
Joining us for another episode of Confessions of a Wasteland.
For another episode of Confessions of a Wasteland Pony. You have no idea how tense it was for me waiting to see what people's reactions to that last 3 seconds were. I lay in bed and dreamed about that moment so many times. The emotion of Terminal C of First Wave playing and the logo coming up for the last time. And of course, the Parting Glass playing as the credit music, as our final. It is as we pour our parting glass, our goodbye. It still hits me seeing my name pop up there, written by James Vermont. No fade in, no fade out, just these hard cuts as this really beautiful track plays over. That builds into this very nice climax. I always try to put a lot of thought into how I edited a credit sequence, into how I cut into it, into what song I used. I always tried to make sure that I carry as much emotion from the final words all the way through to the end of the credits as possible. Because your credits are part of your film. Make your credits transitions good. You are controlling your emotion, the emotions of the audience the whole way through. You've got to do that. God damn. It's a good song. I am still very proud of this. I've picked holes in the work. I've seen mistakes that I've made, but at the end of the day, I am so proud of what this whole team accomplished. I haven't mentioned the work that Kayla Smith and Sancho did on the background art. Sancho made a bunch of art for Fallout Equestria behind the scenes, which got repurposed here, and Kayla Smith, a very good friend of mine from university, built the interface screen, and it looks awesome. And these special thanks into Daniel Mohan, who have spoken about his contributions to my own growth as an artist, and to S.R. Davies, who was the head of PR, who, like, really, he heard Terminal Secrets' concept and he fought for it constantly. He was in my corner the whole way through, and through a lot of thick and thin. And Terminal Secrets wouldn't have happened without him. God damn. And that is the ending. That is the end of Terminal Secrets.